Kane,
Treva,
and Lynn.
And today we are discussing the book to movie adaptation of The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks. Dum dum dum. HeLa. 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 HeLa.
Why is everything a song with you?
HeLa. Because you can go.
and a dance. She's over here grooving.
The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks was written by Rebecca
Skloot. Skloot.
Y'all are definitely related.
I was definitely going for like the younger, the shoot.
Me too.
And they were going for the 1990s version.
I actually was starting off with the Whitney Houston Waiting to Excel. Shoot.
I was too, actually.
But then you went salt pepper on me.
Yeah. Always.
It's a whole big thing here. Okay.
The movie was produced by Catherine Dean. The screenplay was written by George Wolfe, Alexander Wu, and Peter Landsman. Alexander Wu did something else, which I can't remember what it was.
Did you say Wu or Alexander Wu?
I love this book. Second time reading, third time reading the book. Very, very, very intense. And a history lesson at the same time.
I did enjoy the book. Y'all know how I am with the history. Because I didn't expect it. If I don't expect history lesson, then it's like, but it was great. Great book. It really was.
Especially being from the area. All of us are from the Virginia, Maryland area where all these places are just so local and tangible. They're real. I mean, I lived in Baltimore for 5 years in college, and just to know these places that she actually frequented. I mean, I've been in John Hopkins to get health care before too. So just to know it's so local, and then it's a history of, well, Black history, but also local history is big to me.
And then being able to go up there and ride around and just look on the streets to see what they look like now, and almost knock on the door of certain people because you look at the numbers on the streets.
Yeah, never did that. That sounds like a stalker.
Because I'm going to tell you, Henrietta Lacks is one of those books where you know how I get.
You became part of the movie, the book?
I became part of the book.
Are you her sixth child?
Usually did. Absolutely.
Oh, okay.
I remember years ago when we read this the first time, like, I literally could not remove myself from that story. I went to work upset.
Mad about everything.
Mad about everything. Just feeling proud, but also upset because, the whole storyline, Rebecca did such a good job. I just don't understand how she was able to continue on doing her research at certain points. I mean, I know there are things that were dramatized for the movie, but just having to deal with some of the behaviors of the family and to continue on, like, hats off to her. Also, just being able to really get to the root of what happened to them. It's just, if you have not read this, you need to read it. You need to get your history lesson. If you are someone who has opinions about cross races, you need to understand what is actually being injected into you to help you fight all of these horrible diseases and what has cured you of any kind of, with vaccinations or whatever. I just think everybody needs to understand this storyline.
Well, this book was actually recommended to me by one of my best friends who is white. And she bought this book for every female person that she had in her life. I think she bought like 7 or 8 copies. And she recommended it to me. And for one, I couldn't put it down. But for one, I was thankful that she got me a copy of it. But to know that someone of a different race could be so touched and moved by the culture, for one, but for two, what was done to our culture, it's just like, it makes you kind of realize that, like, the world is not as segregated as it's portrayed in the media.
We're all connected somehow, right?
Yes.
Even for those who think they are segregated. You're not. We're in ya.
So, like, I always tell the story, like, when I first started working for the National Institutes of Health, this book was recommended to me by the director of National Institutes of Health. And the first thing that was going through my head was like, okay, right, there's just getting ready to be all of this over-the-top scientific talk. And they were assured me that it was plain language. And I didn't know a lot about the history of a lot of science and all of that stuff. So reading it just blew my mind. I got the book, and I think it rotated through every female in the family. you remember we were going to take a road trip to Virginia so that we could see, go to Lacksville or whatever.
Cloverly and all that.
Yeah, and we never did, but I did become obsessed with the book, but I didn't become one with the book, similar to Rhea. But it was such a great story, and the fact that it's based on real life and real characters just blew my mind.
The amount of history that goes along with this, again, is something that everyone needs to understand.
There's one part in the book, because the book in general, for those of you that don't know, the book is about HeLa cells and science and how this woman, Henrietta Lacks, she basically was sort of the mother of all scientific experiments, because it was her cells that were pretty much stolen from her and used in scientific research. But there was a line in the book that I tell you every time I read it just hurt my heart with the daughter when she made the comment that, well, my mom's cells saving all these lives, and it's just crazy because her kids can't even afford to go to the doctors. And every time I hear it, I just want to cry. Like, it's so sad. All the money that was made off of her mom's cells by scientists across the world, and they got none of it.
And also, they didn't get any of it back then. You have the stories done. You have the reports out. You get more and more documentation. And still, to this day, nothing.
Well, they've been recognized. NIH recognized them.
Yeah, but recognition is different from let me take care of your children for the, rest of their lives.
Well, Rebecca did when she wrote the book. So a lot of the proceeds from the book have been going directly to help some of the kids, and it's been funding college.
And then she turned like one of the locations or something like that into some historical site or something like that in Clover. I think that's what she was, one of the things she was
I don't
saying.
even remember that. That's cool, though.
I think at the end of the book it said something about that. But what's so sad is poor, what's her name? Who was that? Deborah. Freaking died before it came out. Like
9 months.
Yeah.
Broke my heart.
Right. It was just...
and she was so passionately attentive to knowing all the facts that she could learn about her mom.
Mm-hmm. I mean, her and Zachariah, my heart hurt for the two of them. I mean, my heart hurts for all of them, but the two of them, I feel like went through the most.
Oh, yes.
Because they really didn't even Zachariah knew her, but, she didn't get a chance to really know her. And then, oh my goodness, when she learned everything about her poor sister.
That was rough for me.
It was
the
hard.
one that was put in the home? Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Which was, which was typical. That's what they did. If you had any kind of special need, they didn't know how to deal with you. They put you away somewhere. But I am sure that they did so many experiments on that girl once they realized who her mother was.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Because, they already went and took stuff from all the kids. They had them believing that they were getting vaccinated for something when actually they were taking their blood to test it to see if, they had, more or had the same types of cells or maybe something even more powerful. I guarantee you, her being in that home, they made a lot of money probably off of allowing the scientists to come in and do what they needed to do with her.
Oh, 1,000% they did.
I felt like it made you look at Johns Hopkins a little differently for how they are so popular now. But it's just like, oh my God, you were stealing people's cells.
Well, I think the problem is not necessarily as much as they took them, because back then you didn't need permission.
Right. You still don't.
And now you need permission, but you don't have to let somebody take whatever they've removed from you. You can say, no, I want to toss it, or I want to do something with it. So you do have more rights over what comes out of your body. But back then they didn't have it. What's more tragic to me is the fact that they did it fine. Is so much stuff done in the interest of science that we want them to continue to do it. But the fact that you did not compensate them once you realized what you had, like, that is what bothers me so much. There's a lot of things that people that hospitals and, they test your blood, they test you get a biopsy, they're going to take whatever that came, what came out of you, and they can do whatever they want with it if that's what you agree to allow them to do. But if you do something that you make a profit from, it just seems like you should have to compensate that family.
Agreed.
But, in the book, the husband said, when they called and asked him, he said, nah, but they used it anyway. They never had permission to use her cells. He actually told them no, and they used it anyway. And so to me, that's criminal.
But I think they were using them already.
I think so too.
I mean, anything they took from her, they could do whatever they wanted with it at the time, because she's the one who was granting permission. It's after she passed away and then they had to go to the rest of the family. Anything that they didn't have, I don't know that you really have the ability to stop them from using it once they already have it. It's already their property. And it took only one drop to regenerate those crazy things.
Yeah, it was just crazy.
It was.
So, what'd you guys think of the movie?
I thought Oprah Winfrey,
Oprah's
Deborah Lacks was absolutely amazing, but she's always been amazing in everything I've seen her in.
I really love how the book, so reading the book and then anticipating the movie, I'm really glad that the movie was a story into how Rebecca wrote the book, as in she went through the research, meeting with the family, but then also still gave these flashbacks into Henrietta's life.
Yeah.
That she could portray from what she was told. So I like how it had both aspects.
Yeah, her interviews with the older family members brought a lot of insight into Henrietta's life.
Yes.
And it's interesting because, I mean, we know how the book was written, and I'm assuming it was as true to the real timeline as it came across. But for Deborah, her family members really never talked to her about her mother. Until Rebecca came in, it's like that time passed, and now she convinced them, I'm trying to write a book, I'm trying to put this in the forefront, I'm trying to do this, that she learned more about her mother than she had known her whole life.
And it's so sad. It's like she just grew her whole life missing that.
And she knew her mom loved her, she knew her mom cared, but, you know, they suffered. And she kept saying, you know, they suffered so much because their mom was gone. You know, when you think back, just a few dollars may have relieved somebody better to be able to take care of them. Like when their aunt finally did take them from the abusive one, you know, they may not have ever even had to go there had there been some sort of compensation going on.
Right.
Because of course back then it was just more about, I can't afford these 3, 4, 5 kids or whatever.
Right.
And you know what made it worse is, you know, they trusted the preacher, whatever his name was, to come in, played by Courtney Vance.
The long name, Sir
something Lord something, Sir Lord something. He came in and kind of tricked them into trying to get to his mom's cells also, and then end up suing them.
Right.
The family in the end. It was
horrible.
the laws back then was crazy, and he was a terrible human being, which made Deborah even more, suspicious of everyone because they've already been taken advantage of originally, and then he comes along and it's just like, who do you trust? So I understood her going back and forth with trusting Rebecca at one point and then not trusting her, because she's been through so much.
Well, she also had some mental issues.
That whole family just went through so much abuse. Mm-hmm. It's just so bad.
I know. When she talked about what Zachariah went through, being beat all the time, and then she was raped. But one thing I can say is I was, in the book, it didn't necessarily say how many times incidents had happened, but when it happened, that auntie came in there and took care of it. Yeah, no. They're leaving.
The baseball bat and everything.
Right.
I love that.
She came and took her away from that situation. And not just took her, she took all of them.
Yeah, that was awesome.
I love how they made the red nail polish and the red lipstick so prominent in the movie, because that was the one connection that she really knew about her mom, was that she always had her nails painted, she always looked well and looked put together, and that was the one thing that Henrietta Lacks really wanted to do with her daughter as she grew, was to paint her nails and do her hair. So I'm glad they put that correlation in there.
The colorism, the colors in the actual movie, whenever they showed her, it was almost black or white.
Yes.
But when they switched to those specific things that were very critical about Henrietta, there's so much color. Like, it was really dull at certain scenes. And of course, like you said, with the nails, toenails, and that was very bright. And then when she went dancing, all of a sudden she had all this color to her.
Red dress on.
And then when they were on the Ferris wheel and she was telling them that she had cancer, it brightened up. So I just thought that was neat how they were able to portray that.
I paid attention to that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to look for that again. Mm-hmm. What broke my heart in the book is when they described the picture of her sister, when they found that picture of her in the files, and she held on to it like it was just something, but it was like a devastating picture, like you could clearly see she was tortured. That broke my heart.
Me too.
It was also amazing when they were able to bring Henrietta and Zachariah into John Hopkins, and they put the cells. It's just a projection.
And they stood behind
them. They stood in front of it, just
yeah.
as if this is what my body is filled with. This is my mother.
Yeah.
And that just.
Oh, you mean Deborah?
Deborah. I'm sorry. Yeah. That was so moving.
Yeah.
Because it almost kind of made it sometimes seem as though maybe Deborah wasn't as smart, But when you actually pay attention to what she was going through, she's very smart. She knew what was going on. I mean, some things were kind of cuckoo when they talked about they were flying them into space and stuff. I can see where that could just drive somebody insane. But the fact of the matter is, this is someone who is, so lost because she didn't have her mother growing up, that those cells meant so much to her. I mean, even the picture, which was so touching.
Oh, yeah.
Just being in that scene.
Or
scene
even with her like holding it in her hands and being able to hold her mother, and how she felt that it was cold and she was like blowing on it to like warm her mother up. It was a very touching scene to me.
I feel like that's when you said she come across as like not all there or a little slow, but back then thinking of like my mom's parents, my grandparents and everything, if you say, oh, they're cloning people, back then they tend to believe that they're cloning people. So she took that and ran with it because back from my perspective, seeing my grandmother all believe the ancient tales or whatever, you know what I'm saying? So,
but they were cloning people. They just weren't actually cloning an entire person from her mother's cells. But back then they were cloning people.
Oh, then they were right.
So what's so interesting is because when I gave that book to my mom to read, she was reading it and she says she remembers when she was little, they used to say stuff like, don't go out late at night because Hopkins will come and get you. Because they were saying that they would just snatch black people off the streets and take them and do experiments on them. And she said that was like the thing. Like you could not hang out late because Hopkins will come and get you.
If you lived in the Maryland area, they did it all the time. Is basically because I remember that happened when we were at my grandfather's house and he had Alzheimer's. That was one of the things that he was freaking out about. Shut the door, lock the door, shut the door, lock the door, because they're going to snatch you. I was like,
Hopkins gonna get you. I don't know what's happening.
Yeah, my dad's parents lived in Baltimore, and I remember we could not play outside past a certain time. It also wasn't a great neighborhood, but at the same time, I remember hearing about getting snatched. I mean, I was young, like 5, 6, 7, so I don't remember it being John Hopkins, but I do remember talking about being snatched up, and it all correlates basically.
Because they actually believe that they snatched people off the streets and drug them in there and drugged them. And
I think they did.
Which they probably did.
I did.
Along with my grandparents telling me, I don't know how true this is, but this made me feel like that it is true, about not wanting to be or putting down that you're going to be an organ donor. I grew up waiting for me to get my license and to turn 18 so I could put no to being an organ donor, because they say that if not they're not gonna do everything they can if somebody else could use your organs.
Oh, do everything
it's still said now.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
It's still said
I know,
now.
but this made me think that it really is true. Like I wasn't just listening to my grandparents kind of thing.
Yeah, it's kind of scary.
It is very scary.
You think you're doing a good thing, but then somebody always has to.
There is some people that mess up.
Yeah.
However, I am an organ donor because I'm going to save someone else's life.
I'm a donor
but once
also.
my time comes, I don't want you to let me go if there's a chance for me to live for.
I don't actually believe that happens anymore. I mean, maybe when it first started, but yeah, I'm going to be one.
I don't know. I believe it. I still hear people talking about it. Okay, so what do you guys think about the cast?
I actually love the cast. I think they did a great job in picking them. I'm such a big fan of Rose Byrne. Oprah Winfrey, I'm always a fan. Did an amazing job.
She played Deborah Lacks, okay? She did a really good job.
She really did.
And I love Courtney Vance. Always love him.
I didn't like him in this movie.
But yeah. But we didn't like him, which means that he was a good actor.
Right, exactly.
Reg Caffey, is that what his name is?
Who?
Zachariah was good. I mean, I was like, ooh, I'm kind of scared of him. He did a really good job.
He's a good actor. I've seen him in a few other things.
I'm trying to figure out what else Rose was in. Was she in Bridesmaids?
Yes, she was.
Oh, okay, yes. All right.
I actually watched that today.
Yes. I'm like, where do I know Rose from? Okay. So, I'm not familiar with the rest of the actors that were in that movie. But
I know the guy, Rocky Carroll, who played Sonny Locks. I've seen him in a few movies also. He's a good actor.
And her uncle, he's been in a lot. I can't remember who. The uncle that was praying with her. Remember when she started freaking out and he grabbed her and was praying?
Yeah, he has played in a lot.
Praying for her to, get that spirit out of her.
So is Day. He played in a lot. Day Lacks.
Okay, so let's go ahead and get to the rating.
I, Champagne, give this a full glass. It was for the most part for me, just like the movie. I mean, just like the book. So
I give it a full glass too. This is Rhea.
I give it a full glass. I loved the book. Not that my first time reading it. I will read it again. The movie was great adaptation. So full glass from Lynn.
Full glass from Treva.
That's another bottle.
And what are we drinking?
We are drinking Barefoot Sweet Red. I personally am not a big fan of sweet wines, but the others in the podcast are.
Yum yum. Love me some sweet wine.
yes,
I like sweet. It's okay.
I had that dry stuff.
Yeah, I will take it. Thank you. So, anyways, like, subscribe, follow.
I'm not following that train of thought.
What?
Do we want to have to break this down for you right now?
What?
She said you can have that dry stuff. She said, oh yeah, no, I'll take it.
Got it.
Go Treva. Look at you interpreting.
Because I pay attention. I'm hungry. Sorry.
They're gonna leave my Zay alone.
I ain't talking about Zay at all. I'm talking about just you.
Right.
Just do little. Really?
I'm hungry.
Really? Really? I think we have reached the end of this podcast. Thank you so much for listening.